Sharon, take one.
Nista nibda rajt. Ħajja tiegħi kienet pjuttost normali, kont naħdem xef.
Kont attiva ħafna. Kulħadd jgħidu li Madonna kemm inti hyper. Nagħmel ħafna affarijiet differenti, nistudja nagħlem. Very, very active, għandi tifel, illum għandu 15.
Komplejt bħajti, kont l-università. Kont tnejx ħajja normali.
Kont għandi żgħira terti, tkun fl-isbaħ żmien ta' ħajtek. Moħħok fix-xogħol u biex tixxi d-dar u familja u hekk.
Ix-xogħol ma kienx jaqtali qalbi, xejn, għad nisraġuna tal-lum ma jaqtalix qalbi, imma qabel iżjed, hekk irid ngħid irid nagħmlu dak il-luġġett nibqa' nagħmlu. Enormi l-43-year-old basically.
Dak iż-żmien kelli tifel u kelli tifel ieħor ġej fit-triq. Kienet ilha xi 8 months pregnant kienet ilha minn għalija dak iż-żmien. Wara li tlift l-oħti, xarejn qabel, ta' 23, mietet bi brain tumor, u tisbit oħra jena. Għax fil-li tkun għaddej normali, f'daqqa waħda.
Jena kont imbagħti bħal kull tarbija oħra. Marda komunissima jgħidula reflux, infantile reflux, u il-marda komplet bla maħat manduna.
Għaddejt minn periodu naqikraħ, kon ma niflaħx u ma tantx ħadd ħsieba, u jgħidu ma nafx kif jgħidu bil-Malti jinżillek fil-kliewi.
Kont għandi kemm tlift il-mama li kienet ħaġa kbira li hija f'ħajti, tlifniha suddenly u kienet major factor u bdejt insofri minn xi health issues, waħda wara l-oħra basically.
Il-problema bdiet meta mort l-università u bdejt nikol minn barra. U iż-żar kollha jiklu l-fast food. U hemmhekk il-kondizzjoni għamet.
Kif nidħol ġoċina u nibda nxomm l-ikel, nibda nħossni jisni mhux jattajjeb irrid naqla.
U f'daqqa waħda tal-għaddeni u ommi ħaditni biex nagħmel xi testijiet tad-demm għax id-deni ma rridx jinsel.
Mort għand tabib u qal li kull m'għandek virus. U wara xi ġimgħa rġajt mort sib tabib differenti. U dan kif rani mill-level nduna għalli li għandek gravi inti.
Daqqa waħda spiċċajna l-isptar, dak ismin kien St. Luke's. Għajtunna huma biex ituna r-riżultati.
Għamil li jekk, iċċekjali għaw taħt għajnejja u kif ra għalli mux jgħatsewanti għalli ħanuħodlu għitmija.
Ħadd blood test għax kelli xi ħaġa oħra u kont niċċekkjaha periodically, imma kien perjodu vera busy, kelli xogħol ġdid.
Għalli għandek il-hemoglobin li għad 6. Għalli jgħad baxx ħafna, għalli ma nafx kif jgħad fuq saħajk inti, għalli nis normali ma jkunx fuq saħajhom.
U ma ċekkjajtx il-blood test mill-ewwel, però kelli sintomi, kelli ħakk, kelli affarijiet oħrajn krems, fosthom krems.
Għalli tista' tiġi l-isptar issa. Għatlu toqgħodx tinkwiet, għatlu le, għatlu ma niġix l-isptar, għatlu issa ngħidlek jiġ nagħmel. Għatlu issa ma nikollek l-ħam ta' żimien, għatlu ngħidlek jien kif jitla' hemoglobin. Għalli dawn mhux affarijiet taċċajt, għalli.
Però reazzjoni tal-professur uriet li xi ħaġa serjissima. U l-ħsib tiegħi dejjem wara l-fatt li għandi tifel li nixtieq irrabbih jikber sew l-ewwel qabel.
Hemmhekk indunajt li kienet xi ħaġa vera serja.
U jisu kif għallijek, jisu qalbi wafed dak il-ħin, qed mela li ġara xi ħaġa kbira vera.
U saru jafu li l-kliewi kienu morta.
U mort nara xi ħadd speċjalista, u mill-ewwel aċċerta ġifieri li kelli total renal failure.
Il-kliewi huma organi importanti ħafna għal-ġisem, infatti huma vitali mingħajr kliewi bniedem ma jgħix. Il-xogħol tal-kliewi huwa li jnatfu d-demm, jippurifikaw id-demm, ineħħu l-veleni mid-demm u allura joħroġ bħala waste, bħala urina, però barti dan huma jneħħu l-ilma żejjed li jista' jikkumula fil-ġisem. F'Malta, wieħed minn kull 10 persuni adulti għandhom il-mart tal-kliewi. Wieħed minn kull 10. Fl-anzjani, pereżempju, wieħed minn kull 3 ta' persuni over the age of 65 għandhom il-mart tal-kliewi. L-iktar mart komuni fil-kliewi mingħajr dubju huwa it-sokkor li huwa prevalenti ħafna f'Malta. Tal-inqas nofs in-nies li jkollhom id-diabete xi darba f'ħajjithom jaqbadhom il-mart tal-kliewi. Apparti t-sokkor, għam ħafna mart ieħor li jista' jikkaġuna il-mart fil-kliewi, pereżempju l-pressjoni għolja, il-mart ta' ċirkolazzjoni, l-arterji jkunu dojoq, u diversi mart ieħor, ġifieri hemm lista twila ta' mart li jikkaġuna mart tal-kliewi serju. U maż-żmien il-kliewi jfallu 2 li huma, mhux naħa waħda biss, 2 li huma. U allura tiġi sitwazzjoni serja ħafna fejn jekk ma tagħmilx id-dialysis jew trapjant il-bniedem sfortunatament ma jibqalux ħajja. Meta l-kliewi jkunu qegħdin jiffunzjonaw bejn 5 u 8% biss, nibdew aħna dak li ngħidulu d-dialysis. Id-dialysis hemm żewġ tipi, hemm il-hemodialysis, li aħna ngħidulu l-magna tal-kliewi tagħmilha l-isptar preżentament, 4 sigħat 3 darbit fil-ġimgħa, u għandek ukoll il-peritoneal dialysis li dejjem issir id-dar. Issa il-hemodialysis li jiġri huwa illi d-demm jgħaddi minn fuq filter artifiċjali, il-veleni u l-ilma żejjed inneħħuh, u waqt id-dialysis ukoll però aħna nagħtu affarijiet tajbin għal ġoddem tal-pazjent, jiġifieri hija a two-way process. Il-peritoneal dialysis hija mod ieħor kif nagħmlu dialysis. Darba il-pazjent jibqa' d-dar, impoġġu pipe fiż-żaq u minn ġadan il-pipe nitfgħu likwidu inħalluh hemm għal xi 4-6 sigħat u waqt li jkun qiegħed hemm il-likwidu, dan il-likwidu jiġbed il-veleni minn ġaddem tal-pazjent. Dan il-proċess jirrepeti ruħu 4 darbit kuljum, every single day. U permezz ta' dan it-tindif inti qed tirreplika x-xogħol tal-kliewi.
Well, my wife had been suffering from renal problems, kidney problems, since about 1993. And we came over to Malta in 95 and she was continuing to have problems. And eventually in 1998, the end of 98, she finally went under dialysis. She ended up at Christmas in the renal unit.
Renal unit huwa wieħed mill-iktar unit speċjalizzati li hemm Mater Dei fejn jieħu ħsieb pazjenti morda bil-kliewi. Jiena ili naħdem ir-renal unit għal dawn l-aħħar 37 sena. Niftakar lill-mara ta' Ellen, id kienet tiġi 3 darbit fil-ġimgħa tagħmel dialysis, kienet issofri bħalma kienu jsofru pazjenti oħra.
And at that time, the renal unit, let's just say it wasn't the best. It was very basic. I was quite surprised that the standard of nursing was great, but the actual facility itself was very run down.
Ovvjament, biex tieħu ħsieb numru daqshekk kbir ta' pazjenti, għandek bżonn finanzi kbar. Dialysis bħala treatment huwa expensive ħafna. Dan ma ninsewx aħna li kull pazjent irid jagħmel 3 trattamenti fil-ġimgħa biex jibqa' ħaj.
Il-gvern għalkemm jagħti miljuni kbar biex jagħmel finanzjament tal-mart tal-kliewi f'Malta u t-trattament tiegħu qatt mhu biżżejjed.
It was quite clear that the nurses were highly professional and the doctors who were dealing with my wife, but there was something missing. It just didn't feel right, and I wanted to do something.
Tant kien involut fil-kura tal-mart tal-kliewi li xtaq Allen jagħmel xi ħaġa biex jiġbor il-fondi biex ikollna renal unit iktar attrezzata u iktar armata milli kien hemm dak iż-żmien. Dak iż-żmien 23 sena ilu ma kenniex l-affarijiet li għandna issa.
U niftakru dejjem jipprova jara sa jivvinta u joħlom wara kollox għax dik kienet ħolma tiegħu biex jara kif jirringrazzja l-renal unit.
I was sitting in the waiting room talking to the renal unit nurse at the time, which was Tony Bujea, and I said I would like to do something for the renal unit. And I didn't really have any sort of doubts in what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something physical because luckily I'm a fairly fit person. And I'd always had this ambition to do a cycle ride, a long distance cycle ride. So I came up with the idea there and then. I said, listen, what if I cycle back to my home near Newcastle, Hayden Bridge, and raise some money? Would you be up for it?
Dak iż-żmien Alan kien issuġġerixxa li jiġbor xi fondi għar-renal unit. Jiena l-idea oġbitni ħafna għax kellna bżonn aktar magni tal-kliewi u billi nċertat inħobb ir-rota, iċ-challenge interessatni wkoll.
It was about me on a bike from Malta to Hayden Bridge. It came to mind immediately. There was no plan to involve anybody else. It was just going to be me. When I started talking to Tony Bujea, the renal nurse, he said, I'll join you. And that was then the start of LifeCycle. So eventually we got 4 cyclists, and we had a physiotherapist, who was a trainee physiotherapist, a girl who used to come to the gym. She was going to cook for us. And we had a guy, Nicky Vasallo, who was in Sijiwi, and he had a van, and he was going to be our support system.
La kellna l-esperjenza, laqqas kellna l-organizzazzjoni għal di challenge, però konna determinati ħafna biex nagħmluha ħalli niġbru flus għar-renal unit.
We got the maps out, we started planning the route, and that was how it all began. How do we get from Malta to Hayden Bridge? And there's no internet, on just maps.
Kellna ninformaw il-medja biex jibdew jinġabru l-fondi, jien kelli wkoll nħossib nixtri rota u kellna nibdew it-training biex nippreparaw ruħna għal 3000 kilometru.
And we had meetings every week. We started doing training, and the excitement was amazing. We didn't really know what we were doing. It was very mishmash of organization. We just knew we wanted to do it and help to raise money.
Iċ-challenge kien jibes ħafna. U kemm il-darba nista' ngħid illi qed naħsibha naqaf xi jew le.
So we cycled 3,200 kilometers. We said to the press we were going to do it in 21 days. We did it in 19. We got to the final destination, which was an incredible emotional moment with family, friends, and even my wife waiting for us. And I remember we were getting phone calls the next day saying how much we'd raised and what was being donated, and we couldn't believe it.
Iċ-challenge kien suċċess u ħalla impatt pożittiv ħafna fuq il-pazjenti u stajna nixtru aktar makni għar-renal unit.
The idea was only to do one, and then all of a sudden we said, well, you know, it's a success. Obviously people are taken in by the challenge. Why not keep this going? Let's do another.
Jiena jisimni William Saliba u wieħed mill-partiċipanti għal dawn l-aħħar 14-il sena tal-LifeCycle. Darba waħda kont għaddej mill-Valletta Waterfront tal-Furjana u rajt il-parteċipanti tal-LifeCycle Challenge qegħdin jagħmlu session fuq l-spin bikes. U ħadd interess jiena. Għadda żmien, sena ta' wara rajt li qed jerġgħu jibdew jippreparaw għal challenge oħra u kont applikajt ix-xogħol fejn kont naħdem dak iż-żmien biex nieħu leave. Ma tawniex leave u kont irriżenjajt u applikajt biex nagħmel iċ-challenge. Dik kienet tkun avventura lija.
We also had this idea, or I had this idea, that if we went to places which were off the beaten track and extreme, then we'd attract the attention of the media. And if we got the media on board, then the sponsors would follow. And that was the case. So from the early years and right up to about 2008, we visited all sorts of places. We went mainly into Europe, and that was an incredible journey because we visited some extraordinary places like Albania, Romania. We went up into the Arctic Circle, and these places were exciting places to go to and very challenging. We couldn't do the same challenge in Malta. People were really coming on board and doing it year after year. And we visited many, many countries, but our ultimate aim was to get out of Europe and start spreading to other countries.
Matul is-snin, LifeCycle baqgħet issir u xbarna ammont ta' fondi sostanzjali. Daw il-fondi stajna nixtru aktar magni tal-kliwi, xtajna wkoll apparat speċjalizzat għar-renal unit, ħadna ħsieb ngħinu pazjenti fuq bażi personali u bdejna ta' kull sena intelgħu il-pazjenti lejn Lourdes.
I think originally, if I'm honest, the challenge was the big thing for me, and because somebody was benefiting from that, i.e. the renal unit, that was kind of enough for me at that moment in time. But as we went on, we realized that there was a huge missing gap of awareness.
Nies bħali mhumiex se jkollhom ħajja normali, mhumiex se jkunu jistgħu jinqataw minn fuq il-magni jekk ma jkunniex donazzjoni ta' kilwa.
So we were kind of switching the attention and saying, look, we're doing this, but our worst day on a bike is still better than their best day on dialysis. And that was our sort of theme. And that seemed to work.
Parti mill-ħidma ta' ċiklisti barra li aħna rridu niltaqgħu ma' daw il-pazjenti u niġbru l-fondi, aħna nagħmlu promotion ukoll ta' donor card.
Iġorruha fuqhom li dik tfisser li awtomatikament jekk Alla ħares qatt jiġrilhom xi ħaġa, il-kliewi ikunu donated lill-pazjenti li jkunu qed jistennew fuq il-lista ta' trapjant.
U aħna m'għandna xejn nitilfu biha, għax inti jekk bil-Malti tmut, kollox ħajitlaq bijak ħajindifen, imma bis-saħħa ta' din id-donor card, jekk tmut u din kulħadd minn hemm irid jgħaddi u jkun hemm iċ-ċans li jużaw parti minnek biex iżżomm il-ħaddieħor ħaj hija l-isbaħ ħaġa li tista' tagħmel.
Dan meta mutu qisu ħajinħela kollox. Allura taf kemm nistgħu ngħinu nies aħna b'dawn l-affarijiet. Taf kemm hawn min itibati u nistgħu intaffulu d-batija.
And it also became our mission to increase awareness on not only donor cards, people having donor cards, but also live donors, people giving their kidneys.
Bħalissa ħafna minn nies li hemm jistennew trapjant tal-kilwa qed jiddependu fuq min imut. Li kieku kien hemm iktar nies li jiġu u jkunu lesti jagħtu kilwa, dik ħassolvi ħafna problemi, kemm tiegħi u kemm ta' min u bħali.
And we decided right from the start that we need to make links with the people that were involved in the renal unit and the transplant support group, and we need to bring this to the attention of the public in order to increase the likelihood of people donating kidneys.
U sar jaf ħabib tiegħi u għalli mill-ewwel offra għalli ħanagħmel testijiet jiena għalli għax inħoss li rrid nagħmel xi ħaġa tajba.
Kien imissni lejlet il-miliet, sija qabel għajtu li biex imur fuq il-magna u dak il-ħin għattina ġaraċ kien ħajdaħlu nisija kmini. Da di għaxixina, għal jassibni u lek donor. Dak il-ħin bat nikpi u noxa, tferfir, asnaf kif ħassajtni, kulħadd idur miegħi u jiġi ejja ġej nagħmel kuraġġ, ejja xittalla l-pressjoni, ġej nagħmel kuraġġ isa. U jien dak il-ħin qed nisma' sewwa jew qiegħda noħlom.
U bdejna bit-testijiet u qbilna u tajjeli, Stephen. Live donor ma tantx huma komuni daw in-nies fil-fatt jgħidulhom Good Samaritans.
Il-programm tal-LifeCycle Challenge jikkonsisti kemm fi training u kif ukoll irridu mmorru ir-renal unit u niltaqgħu ma' daw il-pazjenti u anka kienu jiġu l-pazjenti u jkellmuna u jgħidulna minn xi għaddejjin għax dik timmotivak. Niftakar kien hemm persuna u ġiet qaltilna l-esperjenza tagħha kienet għadha żgħira il-persuna U jien madni żgħir u moħħi kalkula li ma naħsibx li t-tfal tiegħi ħejġu bżonn kilwa. Tifhem? U qatt mela ħanara inkellimx il-Tony dak iż-żmien li kien in charge renal unit u għatlu ara nistax inkun donor ta' ħad il-persuna jiena.
Meta xi ħadd javviċinana li jrid ikun life donor, hemmhekk nibdew il-proċess. Naraw jekk hemmx kompatibilità ma' min irid li jagħti kilwa ġifieri, u hemmhekk jiskatta l-proċess.
Insomma, konna minna testijiet u sabu li maħniex kompatibbli u spiċċat hemm il-biċċa xogħol. Għaddew xi 3 snin, ċempilli Paul mir-renal unit għalli għadek interessat bid-donation għalli għaxem 3 did-darba li huma kompatibbli miegħek. Għatlu mela li għatlu ħsibhem kien għatlu nistgħu nagħmluha il-biċċa xogħol. U bdejna l-proċess ma kontx naf minnu dan il-persuna jiena.
Isiru ħafna testijiet fosthom CT scans u X-rays biex naraw li dak id-donatur aħna meta ħanoħdulu l-kilwa maħniex ħanpoġġulu ħajtu fl-ebda periklu. Dik aħna d-donatur aħna lina huwa in-number 1, nifhimna aħna ma rridux li nħottu knisja biex nibnu oħra, ovvja.
Ġurnata minnhom meta kont qiegħed ir-renal unit u qed isiru iktar testijiet, ġi Paul fuqi u għalli ejja ħanlaqak mal-persuna l-oħra li ħadd irċiev il-kilwa tiegħek. U hemmhekk iltqajt miegħu l-ewwel darba. Dak il-mument kien naqra emozjonanti għax issa taf li jekk Alla jrid u jaqleb għall-aħjar u jgħix ħajja normali mal-familja tiegħu. U kull sena għadhom iċemplu li issa din ilha 11-il sena biex jaraw kif jiena u dik napprezza ħafna jiena.
Kienet rigal vera sabiħ u tifhem għalija għara kemm hu minnu qalbu kbira u qalbu dajma. Għana lezmu jkonniġ da tip ta' nies fid-dinja u lezmu jkonniġ da nies.
Issa għaddew 11-il sena minn dik l-operazzjoni u rari biex ngħid il-verità, rari niftakar li kellitnej u qiegħed waħda kilwa għax ma tagħmel differenza ta' xejn. Nibqa' nieħu sehem f'attivitajiet, trekking u niġri u rota għax ma teffettwak xejn kilwa nieqsa.
The pressure on us doing another event of such magnitude kind of took hold, and I think that was the hardest thing, coming from, as I say, a background of a working class guy from Newcastle to suddenly having to organise this huge event and organise things like sponsorships, TV appearances, and it was obviously having quite a toll on your own personal life. We had no system in place to begin with. We were all new to this, and we decided we were going to start forming a committee, and I wanted to surround myself with people who could take this to the next level.
I joined LifeCycle committee in 2009. In that period, it was just a committee that went out, and every member in the committee had to be nominated every year and be voted into the committee every year. So I think the biggest milestone for LifeCycle was the creation of the foundation. And the idea of a foundation is to give more stability, so that the work you do in one year can be built on in the next year. You don't have a new committee coming in and starting fresh. It gave us more credibility even towards sponsors. So sponsors felt they were donating to a foundation and not just an organization.
We were getting 30 to 40 cyclists. We had support people wanting to do the backup as well, the support team. And everything was going well. We were building up to that. And eventually we came to our first milestone in 2008 when we actually crossed from Spain to Morocco. And everything was going great. And it was a wonderful time. And, and that was kind of the launch of the second phase. And I felt that we were right in the right footing. And then all of a sudden, of course,
Jina konċol dakinhar, konna jena u ton niftakar, u għat li konna qegħdin nieħdu l-over, ġifieri daħlet dil-aħbar li ħasditna li ultoni, ġifieri li.
I was going to work I was at Pembroke in the studio, and I was on my way to work at 5 to 5, and I got a phone call from Jack Schiavone. And Jack just basically dropped me for dead. He told me that there'd been an accident on the coast road, and it was one of our cyclists lying under a truck.
He had been out cycling training for the challenge at 5 in the morning, and unfortunately he was hit.
U kien kmieni ħafna qabilna biex jitrenja, sfortunatament baħaritxa fin-niżla ġie imtajjar minn bniedem ma kienx f'siktu dak il-ħin.
I asked him who, and he said, by the sound of things, that the bike's been identified to me, and it was Cliff. And Cliff McAuliffe, and Cliff was due to cycle that year.
I remember the time when Alan called me and said Cliff was hit and he was dead. That was horrible.
Waqt li kien qed jitrejni għal LifeCycle. Kien xokk kbir għalina għalkemm ma kontx nafu ħafna lil Cliff, ma kont naf kemm kien bniedem dedikat, kemm biex jgħin il-ħadd ieħor kif ukoll bħala membru sħiħ tal-LifeCycle.
I remember sitting down, stunned really. It was an incredible feeling of, I don't know what really, it was like, in a way, guilt, because obviously he was cycling for LifeCycle. Obviously you couldn't believe that somebody had been killed on the roads.
I remember walking in Pembroke, because I used to train in Pembroke, and I couldn't even speak. It was just no tears at that point, just sheer shock.
Kienet hit and run, l-impatt fuqna kien unbelievable, ma konniex qed nistennew dik l-aħbar.
And it was very soon after we were meant to go to our challenge in Turkey. It's Turkey and Syria. And obviously everyone was very hit negatively with this.
We had this incredible meeting whereby we said, listen, we need to meet the family. We need to ask them permission, see what their feelings are. Do we cancel LifeCycle?
And we were honest. We said, listen, if you don't feel you can go on this trip or you don't feel comfortable to cycle, we're willing to cancel the challenge. And it was a very, very emotional meeting.
But my first thoughts were, somehow, even though I felt I was intruding, I needed to meet with Shirley McAuliffe and say, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to continue? Do you want us to do the challenge? Because this in its reality was bigger than one person. It was about saving lives of dozens of people. But was that the right time to bring it up? No. And she said categorically, go ahead, because Cliff would have wanted it to go ahead.
And, obviously the families of the cyclists were worried as well, and it was a very difficult decision to take. So we got the team together, we spoke to the cyclists.
And it was probably the most emotional meeting I've ever been to. I mean, there was people there who just literally didn't want to get on a bike again. We had a vote for the cyclists. I said, listen, it's up to you guys, but we've been given permission of the family, and I personally think we should go ahead, but we should do it right.
As a group, we spoke about it, discussed it, and we said we should do it even to commemorate Cliff, because at least the challenge would still happen. Cliff wouldn't have died uselessly.
We managed to do a banner of Cliff about literally that day. And at the end of the meeting, I remember I walked across the room and they'd never seen this banner. And I just pulled this cord and this banner dropped. And I think I was in tears, and I think it was about three quarters just broke down. Somebody said a prayer. We had a minute's silence, and that was it. That was how we went on. And it was hard, really, really hard.
The morale at that point was very low. But somehow, I think during the challenge itself, it helped gel the team more. We had something, we all experienced something in common, and we had a purpose, all of us.
With me personally, I think it was very important that LifeCycle continued. I think for all the good it was doing, and I knew Cliff well, and I knew that Cliff, if he could, speak from above, he would tell us to keep on. He wouldn't want us to stop. And I think that was very important that we move forward. The idea was to really attract the cyclists, to attract those people who wanted the adventure.
Jiena Cody Martin.
So my name is Jenny. I'm from Ireland, obviously.
Bażikament, bil-kemm kont naf x'inhi rota.
I've never cycled before.
Jien ir-rota ma tantx inħobba, però nipprova kollox.
When Alan first mentioned it to me, I kind of saw the kind of pictures of the LifeCycle thing in the gym and everything, and I was thinking, because I love a challenge, and I'm like, that looks interesting,
U ovvja di kienet challenge bir-rota, allura mod xtrajt rota, u bdejt nagħmel training ma' sħabi.
My name is Enol Argüelles. I am from Asturias, in Spain. I am engineer by profession and cyclist by spirit. I just finished my second LifeCycle challenge.
Illum nista' ngħid li rnexxieli nispiċċa 9 challenges.
And then I decided, why not? Because you never, you can say I'll do it next year, but these opportunities don't come again. You're better to try to grab it now.
My name is Robert Vassalla-Juice. I am on the LifeCycle Challenge as a cyclist, and I have participated until now 3 times.
I will describe LifeCycle as a life-changing experience that provides quality help to renal patients. It's also an amazing sport challenge that keeps me motivated every year.
I would describe the LifeCycle Challenge as a challenge to contribute towards a good cause.
But it changes you as a person as well. We joke and we say all it is a bike ride. But it's much more than a bike ride. It tests you on all levels.
The LifeCycle Challenge it's a journey to push myself to limits even I didn't know existed. Physical and mental limits.
Qatt ma kont nobsol li huwa challenging daqshekk.
I heard about LifeCycle Challenge back in 2018 when a colleague of mine mentioned to me that there was a Maltese organization doing 2,000 kilometers in 10 days, which obviously got my attention because I thought, these guys run, it's probably 200. There's no way in hell that they will do 2,000.
2,000 kilometers in 10 days, 200 kilometers a day. I'm like, well, I can't do that.
And I remember the exact moment when I decided to enroll LifeCycle, and it was when he confirmed that effectively we are riding 2,000 kilometers in 10 days. That day, I signed for the challenge.
Deċidejt li nieħu sem, one, għax jiena challenges jogħġbuni. Number 2, il-kuġin tiegħi kont naf li huwa pazjent renal unit u kien ilu qabel ma ħalli kien ilu 27 sena. Barra li kelli li għandi l-kuġin illum il-ġurnata għandi l-papa li kellu renal failure wara operazzjoni u l-papa ilu għal daw l-aħħar sena u nofs imur jagħmel visits ir-renal unit darbtej fil-ġimgħa. U allura iżni kien hemm aim għal xiex nagħmel LifeCycle ukoll, ġifieri kelli skop.
And I like the idea of being able to train at quite a high level. And somebody gains from that. I thought that was perfect for me.
My mother had an operation and her kidneys couldn't restart after the anesthetic. So they took her down. She was almost dead. And they took her down to ITU and I went home thinking that I'm not going to see her alive again. And the renal unit saved her, So it was a very emotional experience for me. She had dialysis. She needed dialysis and it restarted her kidneys. And that was the thing that said, next time I'll do the LifeCycle Challenge to get money for this renal unit.
I actually heard about the foundation. I got to know about the foundation before I got to know necessarily of the LifeCycle Challenge through my grandma, who was a dialysis patient. And we came across the work that the foundation was doing at that time, a few years later, through bringing one of the sponsors to
actually LifeCycle challenge. There I got more into what the challenge was about and maybe the seed of saying maybe I should do it and why I should do it.
My grandmother passed at the age of 85 after fighting with a renal condition for more than 25 years. At the moment, my father is on dialysis, so I'm very well aware about the implication of this disease. Obviously, chances are that myself and my sister will probably be affected by this disease, right? So for us, it's important to raise awareness about renal patients, and we try to do our best to support the community.
The decision to take part in LifeCycle Challenge was really born out of the desire to give back in memory of or because of what my grandma went through. This felt it was the closest thing I could do to give something back. And the second was a purely personal challenge as well, to couple it with it. So how much I could push myself to do that, and this was the perfect occasion to marry the two.
So the initial reason was purely selfish, that I wanted to do it, and I knew it was for a good cause, but that was in the background, being honest. You know, it was about me. But I wanted to do the challenge, and it would be exciting, and it'd be, you know, an opportunity, a lifetime thing that you'd always remember, all the rest of it. And then I kind of thought, there was always in the back of my mind, you know, this is for the renal patients, and, you know, I thought to myself, I better just see what is this about. So I went and I had a look, and I was really quite shocked when I saw the patients. It was like a complete eye-opener. It felt a bit like a prison, really, you know, because they're tied to the machines. They've got to do dialysis 3 times a week for 4 hours. So that was a turning point when I realized what it was really about. So.
Għalkemm il-LifeCycle matul iż-żmien baqgħet tevolvi u l-għajnuna tagħha kibret lejn il-unit, għalkemm il-pazjenti aħna nippruvaw nagħmluhom il-ħajja faċli kemm jista' jkun. Ultimately huma qegħdin ibatu kemm psikoloġikament u kemm soċjalment.
Il-marda tal-kliwi torbtok ma' spitar. Kieku ma kellix il-marda tal-kliwi, ikolli xogħol ieħor, inkun qed insifer il-ħin kollu, u ma jkollix il-limitazzjonijiet fuq il-ħin li għandi bħalissa.
Iżni għandek part-time l-isptar. Tmur tagħmel il-ħin tiegħek, tispiċċa tmur id-dar 3 darbit fil-ġimgħa.
Meta il-ġisem dak li jkun qed jiffilterja l-kliewi, il-kilwa, f'24 siegħa, il-magna titneħħiwlek f'4, il-ġisem għalih dik huwa xokk. Ġifieri side effects dejjem ikun hemm.
Nibda nħoss bħala sharpness ma tkunx 100%, anka ġli jaqbadni ħakma ġismi kollu.
Il-hemodialysis ħafna drabi jkun tolerat tajjeb ħafna, ma diversi pazjenti jħossuhom għajjenin fuq il-magna, xi daqqiet jużaw il-kelma drainjati jew washed out.
Jiena meta kont fuq il-magni, kont immur jisni mixjiena, imma meta kont il-lesti, kont jisni waħda lajti xeba, imma grazzja tal-la nimxejna, ġurnata b'ġurnata timxi.
Taffetwalek il-ħajja ta' kuljum għax il-mara, it-tfal, ommok, missierek, daw ħajjatlu fi problema miegħek. Id-dieta, frott, dik l-iktar ħaġa li nasib affettwadni nidi. Jinkod nikol ħafna frott, tista' ġib valen għalija. Tistax tikol frott, ħaxix mill-inqas.
ċertu affarijiet trid minn ħadd speċjalment minn tkun fuq il-magni għax ma tmurx waħdek lura lejn id-dar.
Bħala relazzjoni nasib taffettwana it-tfajla tiegħi pereżempju. Inti tqis li għandha 3 darbit fil-ġimgħa torqod weħeda. Itgerger, imma fis-istess ħin qisha m'għandniex choice oħra, tifhem? Ma tistax tgħid illum ma nistax immur. Ma mmurx għax ma tistax ma tmurx.
Il-mart kroniku tal-kliwi jista' jkollu effett psikoloġiku negattiv qawwi fuq il-pazjent. ħafna drabi jkun hemm xokk wara d-dijanjosi il-fatt li trid tgħix bin il-marda kronika li ma tmur qatt. Trid tagħmel adjustments fil-ħajja tiegħek fuq ix-xogħol, ir-relazzjonijiet. Pazjenti għandhom iktar ċans li jkollhom ansjetà u depression, pereżempju, min ikollu l-mart tal-klievi.
L-iktar ħaġa diffiċli li hemm l-aċċettazzjoni li tara li f'daqqa waħda kont persuna b'saħħtek u m'intix iktar b'saħħtek kif kont.
Anka biex norqod qed ikolli naqa' problemi, paċenzja ma tbaqa' jisa speċjali. Ġin nkun qed insuq ma nkunx se noqgħod bil-qiegħda, nkolli noħroġ minn ġo karozza. Problemi tax-xogħol għax imbagħad f'daqqa waħda inti tibda tmur 3 darbit fil-ġimgħa, 4 sigħat.
Jiena spiċċajt digri fil-liġi. L-ambizzjoni tiegħi minn mindu kont żgħira kienet li nitlaq minn Malta, nisib xogħol barra u nsifer. Sfortunatament meta jkollok 3 sessions ta' 4 sigħat il-wieħed dialysis fil-ġimgħa ma tantxaw kumpaniji li ħajtuk dak it-tip ta' xogħol. Apparti il-fatt li inti meta ssifer l-ewwel ħaġa li tittamel, l-ewwel issib dialysis center u mbagħad taqta' l-passaġġ.
Minn mindu ġejb di kondizzjoni qatt ma sifirt. Għax jisni hemm ħafna xogħol involut, tkun tgħidilhom fejn sejjer, tara fejn l-isptar viċin, ikun hemm kuntatt bejn Mater Dei u dan l-isptar biex jituhom il-programm li għandek inti l-affarijiet li tuża inti waqt il-magna, jekk m'għandhomx dawn l-affarijiet iridu jibgħatuhom Mater Dei hemmhekk qabel tmur inti ħalli jkun hemm kollox preparat. Hemm ħafna xogħol fiha s-sitwazzjoni.
Mhux kull pajjiż għandu dialysis centers li ħajaċċettaw barranin. Mhux kull xogħol se jtik iċ-ċans tmur tagħmel it-trattament, speċjalment jekk tkun imsifra fuq xogħol. Allura sfortunatament kienet ambizzjoni li kelli qiegħda fuq xkaffa u ninsiha.
We realized that patients needed more than simply machines and medication. So as a committee, we decided to set up RUSH, Renal Unit Support Health Hub. Now, the concept of this is to help patients beyond their medical needs.
We started looking at the way we could support the renal unit, having, yearly meetings with the people that really were involved.
Within this RUSH, what we do is we offer psychological help, free psychological help to the patients. We also pay for a van, so we put less pressure on the families, so we can transport the patients back and forth for the dialysis.
Could we look at something outside of the renal unit where patients could go and get support? The idea was to give free fitness sessions for not only the patients themselves, but also for the staff.
Because kidney transplants are definitely a way of improving a kidney patient's life, LifeCycle thought it was necessary for us to fund the Traċċa software.
It-Traċċa hija software li tamministra database tal-waiting list ta' dawk il-pazjenti li qegħdin jistennew kilwa u tagħmilha iktar faċli meta jkollna donatur biex insibu l-aħjar meċċ.
Through RUSH, we also create awareness towards the precursors of kidney failure, which are very common in Malta. It's diabetes, obesity, hypertension.
We supported a research program looking at identifying the reasons why it happens. In not only children, the first one, but now we're looking at why it happens in adults. So we're supporting these things as well.
We also fund a research project which helps to identify kidney patients at a younger age, or maybe those that are genetically prone to kidney failure. So we can help them and we can start treatment at an earlier age.
So we went to another level, basically, and that put us on a different footing. The foundation came in, I think the committee, we got smaller but more intense to keep that momentum going. The idea was always to do something extreme, and that included the countries. We went to Japan, we went to Australia, we went up to Russia, Zambia in 2016. In 2019, we went to Vietnam, Hanoi, all the way through Laos, into Cambodia, and finished at the famous Angkor Wat. And it was an incredible journey. And I felt that we were right in the right footing. We had always planned to go to our final continent, which was America. And the idea was to go to South America first. And we organized Buenos Aires, across the Andes to Santiago. 2019 came, hit by COVID, everything stopped.
We couldn't travel. It was impossible even to meet for training because groups weren't allowed. So we had to postpone the challenge twice.
And this was a real low point because not only is the event finished, but all the money, the sponsors, all the companies we relied on didn't have any money. So there's nothing coming in, basically.
Kenna namlu ħafna dialysis in isolation ukoll biex nipproteġu il-cohort tal-pazjenti il-kbir. Transplants sfortunatament f'dawk is-sentej kienu near to nothing.
And it was a worry, it was a big worry. And obviously the whole momentum went from there, poof, just like cliff. It went bang, right down. And this was a big one.
But instead of seeing it as a completely negative situation, we said we put our minds together and we created a way of getting funds in.
A lot of people used to come up to me and say, I'd love to get involved, but I'm not fit enough to ride a bike. Well, most people walk, and people can get fit by walking. So we decided to launch Life Walk.
As opposed to LifeCycle, Life Walk is a challenge that it does not require the bicycle, and it takes place in UK. It's 150 kilometers, and we follow Hadrian's Wall.
And we decided to make it a challenge as well. We wanted to do it in 4 days. So Life Walk was launched in 2020.
It also gave us the opportunity to raise funds once more for renal patients at a time when the world was financially dry.
And we managed to bring money in. We raised 10,000 the first time we raised money. And luckily we had a group of nearly 30 people who were willing to do it. The event itself is an incredible event. I try to explain to people who are about to apply, and you can't possibly understand LifeCycle unless you've done the challenge.
Huwa challenge li jekk ma tipprepar sewwa għalih, naħseb li tkun diffiċli li tispiċċah.
The challenge is hard because it is cycling extreme kilometers. We're not doing 200 kilometers for a day. We're doing an average of 200 kilometers every day for 10 days.
Il-ġurnata fuq il-challenge tibda minn meta tispiċċa il-ġurnata ta' qabel. U moħħok ġaqet jaħseb għall-għada, kif se tqum kmieni, ġieli sbaħna fuq ir-rota, ġifieri kien hemm drabi meta tlaqna fl-4 ta' filgħodu jew il-5 ta' filgħodu kun għadu tlam ċappa.
A day in LifeCycle Challenge is like a week in a normal people's life, and I'm not exaggerating. You wake up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., still dark. You are in massive pain because obviously your muscles are sore. You are thinking about a million things that could happen during the day, things that happened the day before. There is no guarantee that you are going to make it through another 200K. 10, 12 hours on the bike is not easy for anyone.
It is really tough, to go from one day to the next, every day, starting afresh, starting the 200 kilometers once again, starting the counter going once again.
But obviously, since you can't still move, you'll get yourself out of bed, have your breakfast, check your bike, check the tires, check that everything's fine, and you get on the way.
After the first couple of hours, your body starts heating up. You start saying, okay, I already passed the first 50K, and you are taking it 50K by 50K, only checkpoint to checkpoint.
When you're actually doing the challenge, the first day you're fresh and you're excited and you say, okay, day 1 done, day 2 done. But by the time you get to the 4th and 5th day and 6th day, the body starts aching all over.
And this is exactly it, everything hurts, but you're working like an engine. You keep going, your muscles are tuned, you're working, and it keeps going.
You keep pushing yourself unless you have something that's really going to physically stop you, you generally will not stop because the determination is there.
Ġurnata oħra, alright, torqod ftit u taqdef ħafna, u mbagħad issib li wara ftit ġranet ġismek jidra rutina.
The backup team represent, in my opinion, a very big important part of the success. They wake up before than us, they take care of every single aspect from logistics to even encourage the cyclists.
They have a lot of things to do. They prepare breakfast. We have a number of checkpoints during the day, every 40 kilometers. And it's crucial to have the backup team there assisting us with whatever we need to consume during our checkpoints. They are there to back us up, to guide us when we get back to our accommodation. So there are a lot of things that they are involved in, even in the pre-planning stage of the life cycle. They are very, very important.
It's really pushing and not stopping.
We keep saying it's probably 30% physical, but 70% mental. Being in a group of people for that length of time and being put under stress brings its own problems. You have to have the mental energy to get through it.
Psikologikament, hija battalja miegħek innifsek.
You don't want yourself to stop. You've trained so much for this, so you're battling your pains, your aches.
It's very hard to keep going, and your energy starts sapping, your pains, your neck pains, your saddle sores.
And you want to quit. You just want to say, wow, this is a lot, this is too much pain already.
And you know that at any moment in time you can just get off the bike and say enough's enough. The temptation's always there.
I underestimated the psychological side of it. There were times where you're really on your own with your thoughts. When you're on the bike for 8 to 10 hours with tired muscles, tired back, ever in pain, the mind just starts playing tricks on you.
Moħħok jibda jaħseb imma jien għalfejn qiegħed fuq ir-rota. Se nasal, minix se nasal.
You're never going to get there. If you're not going to get there, why don't you just quit, call up the backup car?
So although you can get fit, it's the mental ability to get through it is the real key. And that is what we try to get through the cyclists.
Reċenti, meta konna l-Arġentina, kellna ġurnata minnhom kont ngħid jiena ħanieqaf. Ma niflaħx iżda dik it-triq dritta, ma tispiċċa qatt.
So I don't know how I overcame it, but I just know maybe I just wanted to finish so badly that I tried my best to keep pedaling till the end.
I attempted 6 life cycle challenges and I've done the training for all 6. I only managed to complete 1. I can't put in words how bad it feels when you stop the challenge. It's horrible. You know that it's just pain and you physically cannot get back on the bike. But when you see the others getting ready and going on the bike again, it just kills you. I always say, you're a failure if you don't try again. So I tried over and over again. I managed once.
Wara 17 il-ġimgħa training u l-10 ijiem ta' challenge, dik il-ġurnata li tispiċċa challenge, jiena lija hija xi ħaġa emozjonali biex ma ngħidlikx li taqbiż li dema.
The moment you finish, I think the first belief is that it?
The moment we reach the finish line and we complete the challenge, it's of course very emotional. And it's kind of, in a way, an anticlimax because suddenly you've reached the top of that challenge and you've conquered it. And all the training and all the sacrifice comes out in one instant, So it's quite emotional. It's nice, and all your colleagues, all your friends are hugging you and you're hugging them and congratulating each other that it's done.
The feeling of accomplish a challenge, it's massive. It's like an explosion of happiness. You definitely get emotional. There are some tough guys in the team that you will think these guys never cry. Trust me, they do.
People always ask about the finish. It's a weird feeling because you think that there's all this euphoria and people come in and they're jumping around and giving it all this. And yes, there is that, but in a way, it's a bit, I suppose, you're coming down from a high and it's over. And there's like a feeling again you can't explain, but there's like a down. It's like you feel like saying, thank God it's over, but what are you going to do now?
When I finished my LifeCycle challenge, the first thought was towards my father, towards all the renal patients that they are in the same situation like him. It was a really emotional moment, and it made me feel proud of all the training, all the sacrifices that we do to accomplish the challenge.
Everyone has sacrificed so much. I don't think anyone sacrifices more than another in the challenge. I think everybody pulls the same rope.
And it's like a confirmation that you manage, that nothing will stop you if you have enough motivation.
A few minutes later, it just all sinks in. There was a moment where we looked over the ledge, over Santiago, at the top of the mountain, and you just say, wow, I've just crossed South America. And I think that's when I did break down a bit, because you've managed, you succeeded, all the training. I had that conversation with also my grandma, who I did it for, who probably would have scolded me for doing it, but just uncontrollable. And I think it was a good cry.
L-aħħar challenge li għamilt, ftakart ħafna fil-papa, ġifri, 10 days, kont niftakar fih, u l-aħħar ġurnata, isom l-emozjoniet ma felħuġ iżjed, ġifri, kejt, literalment kejt. Spiċċajt li nqtajt għalija wahdi, u xtaq dak il-ħin wahdi, u nibki bil-ferħ, u fl-istess ħin nibki għax jiena spiċċajtu challenge, imma l-pazjenti għadhom għadhom bil-challenge.
Finishing the challenge, it's even a bit extra emotional for myself, because genetically I could be predisposed to have the condition. So maybe one day I'm going to be on the other side and I will need the future LifeCycle generations to be able to support me like I am at the moment supporting people in renal conditions. It's something emotional that I try to think of every time I'm on the saddle.
Meta inti l-estejta, dik lejja kollha tintesa. U wara ftit ġranet tinsa kollox minn xi xaddejt u tibda tħares il-qudiem għal li jmiss, knowing li il-pazjenti jridu jmorru biex jagħmlu dialysis għal kumplament ta' ħajjithom. Sakemm ma jsibux ix-prosmu biex isellifhom kilwa.
Il-pazjenti bħali, il-ċans tagħhom li jgħixu ħajja normali, ġifieri jiena wkoll ovvjament hija li nagħmlu transplant tal-kilwa li tuni ningħata kilwa li taħdem, jien ħattini kilwa oħti, suppost wasalna viċin, thank God, mhux ħajkun twil il-perjodu li ndum bħala renal patient, u we are here thanks to her.
Jiena Xarmin Kallejja u ħankun qed nagħti kilwa lill-oħti. Jiena bħala persuna anki qabel ġara dan kollu, jiena qatt ma kont nabsa li ħad tkun xi ħadd daqshekk viċin tal-familja tiegħi li ħajġi bżonn xi tip ta' donazzjoni tal-organi. U jiena kont għamilt id-donor card vera bidu meta ħarġu, naħseb kien għad kelli xi 18-il sena.
Wasalna thanks to her, ġifieri mill-mument li saret taf li kienet miegħi meta saret taf li jiena għandi renal failure u mill-ewwel insistiet. Ġifieri jiena naqa' xettika issa xettika li I'm going to put her through this, tip ta' persuna li nipprova naqdef ar-rasi, so this is a big challenge. Però insistiet ħafna.
Għamlu kull test possibbli fuqi, sibna kooperazzjoni eżaġerata mill-isptar jieħdu ħafna ħsibna, u l-unika preokkupazzjoni li hija naturali li Alla ħares qatt on the other side oħti kollha rejection. Għaxajni ma nixtieqx li ma jirnexxiex, ġifieri onestament għaliha. Però jiena dejjem ngħid jekk jirnexxieli mqarrin tiegħha xahar ħajja normali kif nafu aħna, minar il-pipe u minar il-magni u minar il-poros u whatnot u kollu għabissejed, aħseb wara l-prospettiva li din tista' tgħix the rest of her life, a good 20 to 30 years oħra, enormi life bis-saħħa tiegħi. U plus hekk ħankun nista' nirrikatta li għandha xi ħaġa tiegħi u xek.
L-ewwel ħaġa li nixtieq ngħid huwa grazzi ta' dak li tagħmlu, li ċiklisti tal-isforz li qed jagħmlu. Għax mhux kulħadd huwa ċiklist, trid tagħmel ċertu ammont ta' training u preparament, kemm fiżiku u kemm mentali. U l-sponsors ngħidulhom grazzi talli dak li qed tagħtu intkom qed itawwal il-ħajja ta' ċertu nies.
L-istess il-ħajja hekk jisajsek bħal meta taqdef inti fuq ir-rota. Kif tiqaf taqdef ħataqa. Allura ma tistax tiqaf. Kemm aħna bħala patients u kemm huma bħala għajnuna lina. U anke l-ħajja ġenerali ma tistax tiqaf taqdef.
I think we should be proud of what we've done. There's a huge change in the renal unit when you walk in. It has affected people's lives. It's done a lot of good. I look forward to encouraging more cyclists to get involved, to join us on this journey, because that's what it is, of raising money and awareness for the renal unit.
The LifeCycle Foundation has come a long way in its 20 plus years. And there's still a long way to go. So we encourage everyone to join. Be the next cyclist. Join the backup team. Contribute to any one of our programs, or just simply donate to our cause.